digital and electronic spying and tracking in family law cases. So there's a divorce case pending, or a divorce case is coming soon, and there's some tracking going on, spying, keeping track of the other spouse, maybe doing things like reading their emails, or tracking GPS, locations, cameras in the houses. There's a whole world of digital and tracking, and there's both federal and state laws that apply to this. Federal rules on this kind of stuff. There's the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. There's also the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, and then state law can vary pretty greatly. So I wanted to talk about some of this, what it looks like with spousal tracking, with divorce, potential divorce, pending divorce, and what that looks like and what kind of liability you're dealing with. For example, so there might be cameras in your house. There could be cameras in the kitchen, in the foyer. A lot of people have Ring doorbell or some version of that product. So that's the front porch. I mean, that's pretty clearly public kind of spaces. But what if there's cameras like, in the bedroom or in the more private parts of your home? Is there a right to monitor what's going on those? Eavesdropping, listening to the other person. It's your house, but it's also their house. Like maybe you're still living together with a spouse and a divorce is pending. And there's definitely still a right to privacy even if you're married. There's nothing saying these right to privacy laws only apply to single people. So a common one, but the one that comes up a lot but has a pretty valid, obvious sort of answer is this whole idea of wiretapping, eavesdropping. If I'm recording what's going on in the other room of the house, or I'm recording a conversation and I'm not part of this conversation, I'm probably in trouble. I could say, well, I own the house, or it's my camera, or whatever. But if I'm eavesdropping, if I'm listening in on someone else's conversation, in Michigan, we're a one-party consent state. So if I'm on the phone with someone, I'm allowed to record them. I don't have to tell them I'm recording them. I'm allowed to do it. If I'm in the same room with someone and I'm recording them, I can do it. But if I'm not in the room and I'm recording other people that don't know they're being recorded, that I can't do that. And that kind of blurs this line of having cameras in your house, or who owns what phone, or these sorts of things that come up with married people, especially when a divorce is coming. So you want to watch out for that kind of thing. It can be a real problem to be eavesdropping and wiretapping, which can include listening in on cameras and phones and other sorts of devices. So another thing that's common with pending divorces are coming, especially if there's child custody disputes, child custody issues that you want to watch out for, is social media posts. I mean, the short answer is don't post anything on social media. Why do you need to be on there? You don't need to be on there. Don't post things on Facebook that are just going to get used against you later, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever platform it is that you spend time on. Don't post things about you, or if there's a divorce pending, things about your girlfriend, potential girlfriend, about your habits, your life. You're at a bar and there's photos of you drinking, or you just want to stay away from all this. There's no good posting on social media when a divorce is pending. You just want to stay off of social media. Another thing that comes up in this same type of category with digital information and storage is emails and use of emails. Once you start a divorce case, make sure you change your passwords. Set up a brand new email, get a Gmail account, and use that, and let that be the end of it. You do not want to be using work-provided, employer-provided email. Employer-provided email has caused all kinds of problems in the past for people that have a divorce case pending. There's a case where someone was using an email through their work and communicating with their attorney, which they think is privileged and confidential, and it's really not, because the employer has access to that email. The employer can get the email, and in that case, in a Michigan case, the opposing party in the divorce case was able to subpoena the employer and get all these emails that were going on between the client and his lawyer, and the client and all sorts of other people, because those emails are not private. If you're using a work-provided email, it is not private. You don't have a right to privacy, an expectation of privacy, and you really need to worry about what's in there and be careful of what's going on. Your best bet, divorce case starts, get a new email account, use a password you've never used before. Don't use something that your spouse could figure out. You don't want to get into that world. You just want to stay away from those issues. Spyware is another one. Spyware is a good category. Any sort of spyware is illegal. If you have software that's on a computer and your spouse is using the computer and it's tracking keystrokes or controlling whatever is going on and sending it to you, you can't do that. That's very clearly spying. It's illegal for you to be doing that sort of thing. Now, GPS tracking is another category we get into. People have the Find My iPhone app and these other things where you can see someone's location. And if your spouse has voluntarily shared their location with you, of course, that's fine. But people will get into things where they'll track the vehicle through an app, like GM vehicles, for example, I know have these apps. You have your My Buick app, and you can see where your car is all the time. And if you're tracking your spouse through that, you have to be careful about that to be sure that you really have permission to be doing that. Is it really your account? Is it your car, or it's not? So there's sort of an assumption at the beginning of a divorce that kind of consent has been revoked. And our advice to clients is just go ahead and just flat out revoke it. Just make it clear. I'm no longer giving you consent to track my location. I'm no longer giving you consent to use my passwords and usernames and get into my accounts. I'm removing all of that. Just make it clear right at the beginning, because you don't want to get into this stuff where the spouse is getting into locations or getting into accounts and it's a little unclear whether they had permission or not. You want to just revoke all that at the beginning of a divorce. You guys are going your separate ways. Basically you're allowed to track the vehicle if the title, if the car's in your name, you can do it. Now, once there's a divorce case pending, I don't know, it sounds problematic to me, but legally you could still track a vehicle if it's in your name. And then same thing would be true if you're driving a vehicle that's in your wife's name or your spouse's name. You want to be careful of that, because maybe they're still tracking it. So again, you want to just revoke the consent to all that stuff right at the get-go. Make sure it's clear you're not okay with that. You don't want that happening. If you're tracking someone's phone and the phone is in your name, I mean, that it's your phone, so you can do that. But it just is going to create problems if a divorce is pending and you're going your separate ways. You want to start unraveling sort of the stuff, so you're not accused of doing something you weren't meaning to do, or you don't want your wife or spouse tracking you, tracking your phone location, tracking your vehicle. You want to just make sure you've revoked consent to all that stuff right from the beginning. Now, the way Michigan law is, you're allowed to hire a private investigator, and they're allowed to track people. You can track a spouse that way. You can track their vehicle, track their location, do all sorts of different, really what you'd think of as spying on them. You're allowed to do that if you hire a private investigator, but you yourself are not allowed to do it. And then a shared computer at home can get into a strange world with these laws too. If there's a shared desktop sitting in an office, you use it, your spouse uses it, you're going through a divorce, spouse leaves their email account open and you can see an email on the screen. Is that something you're allowed to look at? Yeah, probably. It's kind of like leaving a piece of paper out on the table, right? But if you then go into that email account and start going through unread, unopened emails, now you've gone too far. Now you're going to be in trouble. Or if you're on the computer and you're just kind of guessing at your spouse's username and password because you have similar usernames and passwords and you kind of can guess it, you're not allowed to do that. Now you're into a world where you don't have access to something and you're abusing that. You want to be careful of those sorts of things. It can be pretty tricky when you're sharing a home with somebody. If there's a shared computer, a laptop, or whatever it is, it gets into a world you don't want to be involved in. You don't want to get accused of hacking into somebody's email or other accounts or online accounts, social media, bank accounts, whatever it is. You want to make sure you have permission for access to these accounts. Through a divorce case, you can get that permission. Through a divorce case, if it's something like a bank account or financial stuff, you're going to get access to that stuff anyways. But if it's in more like private sort of stuff, text messages, emails, other social media apps or communication apps, you want to make sure you have consent to that stuff. You don't want to be hacking into it, or it was accidentally open and now I'm reading, a half hour worth of stuff on there, because that's not going to be good and it's just going to land you in trouble. So you want to just make sure you're getting proper advice about all of this from an attorney. If you're going through a divorce and you're still living together, you have access to each other's accounts, you want to know what that means, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, so there's no confusion.